Now you're listening to Fantastic Formosa with John Abrams in Taipei. Welcome back. This is Fantastic Formosa with John Abrams. Our guest again is Brian. He was a Apache helicopter pilot, and he just told us about his life in Montana, growing up as a kid, and his choice of joining the Army and becoming an Apache pilot. And now we're going to talk about the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and some of his experiences fighting in two different environments, a desert-like environment, and then, of course, the mountainous terrain of Afghanistan. But first, Brian, for those that didn't catch the first episode, Brian said that he had flown the AH, which means attack helicopter, 64, and that's the Apache helicopter. And Taiwan has those as well, as many of you already know. And Brian has a lot of experience, and he's retired now. He lives in Taiwan. He's enjoying life here. And when you get 25 plus years, you get a pension. And he's here in Taiwan. He often joins me for beers at local pubs and establishments, and we talk about life. And I wanted to invite him on the show and talk about his experience with you, since many of you listening are in the Taiwan Army. Brian, okay, so where were you when the war started, the first one, Afghanistan?
Oh, well, yeah, thank you. Hello. Where was I? That was a good question.
Well, you had just gotten out of school for the Apache helicopter program, I believe.
Yeah.
And then after you graduate from school, training school, what do you do?
Yeah, so they send you off to your first duty station, and my first duty station was a U.S. Army base that was located in the country of Germany.
Okay, all right, excellent. Germany, where in Germany?
So I was stationed in a little town called Hanau, just a suburb of Frankfurt, Germany. So Frankfurt was my hangout area. Yeah.
All right. So, what was the name of the base again? I'm sorry.
The name of the name of the base was called Fliegerhorst Kaserne.
Okay.
But it is in the town of Hanau, Germany.
Is that a German base or U.S. Army base, or both?
Yeah. So formerly it was a German military base, and then after World War II, the U.S. Army took control of it, and we moved into it.
Okay, interesting. So how long were you in Germany?
Yeah, total Germany time, I moved around a few different places while I was there, but total time in Germany was 12 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Now, was this during the Cold War era?
No.
Okay.
So, of course, the Cold War ended in 1989. I joined the Army in 1992, and not during the Cold War.
Sure. Well, when I was a kid growing up, the Apaches were there to fight off the German or the Russian tanks that were supposedly, I can't remember the gap, they called it.
They called the Fulda Gap.
Right, which was supposed to be predicted the biggest tank battle in human history, but never happened, thank God.
Yeah, a lot of the U.S. military equipment that we have currently was all designed for that battle. The Bradley, the Abrams, the tanks, the APCs, and the Apache helicopter was all designed originally to fight that Cold War battle against Russia.
Ironic, we never fought in the Gap. Wow, that was always we were always taught this huge tank battle would be nothing we'd ever seen in human history, but we never saw it. The Berlin Wall came down, and we moved on. So where were you when the Twin Towers got hit in New York?
So I was actually on a training mission in Hungary,
Okay.
So my company, 8 Apache helicopters, we flew from Germany down to Hungary to do a NATO training mission with the Hungarian military.
Mm.
And so I was living in a tent in Hungary, and one of the guys had brought a portable satellite TV receiver and stuff. So we actually were watching TV in our tent when the trade towers were hit.
You must have freaked out.
Yeah. My commander, it was a very interesting reaction. Across the whole world, everybody was definitely in shock.
I was. Yeah. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I thought, I thought about it. Yeah, this is what they would do if they had a chance. So I remember the horror of that, and you just knew we were going to war. There was no guessing. There was no debate.
Yeah.
It was just like, we are going to go full scale crazy.
Yeah. It's interesting. We look back on history as it's assumed that everybody, it was a well known or very controlled environment. But like you said, when 9/11 happened, we really didn't know if that was it. Is this the extent of it?
At the time.
Is there going to be more? Is there going
aircraft?
to is it going to be international? Is there going to be attacks elsewhere in the world? We really didn't know what the full extent of the attack was going to be, so we had to prepare for the worst.
Yeah, we just expected Paris and London to get hit, and nothing happened.
Right.
And we didn't know if Chicago or L.A. might get hit. Nothing happened. It was so it was only 4 aircraft, and quite honestly, the third one hit the Pentagon, but they think it was supposed to go maybe to the White House, or it couldn't find the White House, or you could certainly find the Capitol if you're flying around. But the Pentagon's pretty low to the ground. I've been there. That was an incredibly lucky hit. It knocked off. It actually hit light poles, street lights, as it was coming in.
I think the plane that the passengers were able to,
take control of, and it crashed.
Yeah, I think that target was one of the Capitol or something.
You think that was supposed to hit the Capitol?
I believe that was the story.
Right. Yeah, because hitting the Pentagon is it's just like hitting a black hole. I mean, sure, you're going to hurt people, but it's still, the thing is a fortress.
In particular, the side that they hit had just been reinforced.
Yeah. Friends of mine who were in the building said there was some shaking, and then the fire alarms went off, but they had no idea it was an airplane. So that's how big and strong the thing was. Have you been to the Pentagon?
No, I never have.
All right. I was going to ask you because my young son believes that in the center of the Pentagon, you see this little house and little building. And he believes that what he listens to on YouTube, that there's an elevator there that takes you to an underground base.
I don't know.
I said, no, it's a restaurant.
That's what I've been told.
Yeah, and he didn't believe me. And I go, yeah, I've been there. It's a restaurant. And he goes, no. I said, actually, I told him there's restaurants all over the Pentagon inside it's like a shopping mall inside the Pentagon, and have barbershops, and they have 2 large gyms, swimming pools, and all in the basement areas, of course.
Oh, wow.
And it's a city, actually. I took my wife there, and she was shocked how big it was. It's definitely worth a visit. So you got the word in Germany. Did you guys just suddenly cancel your exercise and get in your choppers and head back to Germany, or?
That is an interesting part of it. Yes, the Hungarian government decided that we should end our training exercises and redeploy our unit back to Germany. So the day after, we packed up and flew back to Germany.
Right. So you went right back, and as soon as you landed, what was the order?
Yeah, so of course we prepared for follow-on orders, right? So we got back to Germany and continued to do our local training and preparations for a deployment order, which didn't come until for us, my unit, until we went into Iraq. But,
oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, of course, which was 2003. So, in 2001, we did have units deployed to Afghanistan, right? When the war started, but I was not part of that unit.
All right. So you finally get the order, and they pack up your Apaches, put them on a C5, I guess, or C-17.
No. They, so I was in Germany with the 1st Armored Division.
All right.
So my entire division packed up with tanks and everything, and we put them on cargo ships and sent them down to Kuwait, and we offloaded all of our division equipment at the port in Kuwait, and then we for Iraq, and then we went north into Iraq.
Yeah. Were you in the initial invasion, or?
No, I was not part of the initial invasion. I was there just a few months after the initial invasion.
All right.
Yeah.
The capital fell very quickly.
Yeah, much quicker than it was anticipated, actually.
All right. That was a surprise, I think, for a lot of people. And then the insurgency kicked in.
Right. Yeah. So, So to backtrack, of course, when we went into Iraq, globally, Iraq had the 4th largest army in the world.
Right.
So our planning definitely, we anticipated the time to take to get to Baghdad to be much longer, but we actually got there pretty quickly.
Right. So you would you based yourself in Iraq or Saudi Arabia to go into missions into enemy territory?
Yeah, so we offloaded our equipment in Kuwait.
Right.
And then we went, we took our equipment, our helicopters up to a base in northern Kuwait, right on the Iraq border. Mm-hmm. And then we just got prepared, gassed up, issued our ammunition, and loaded, everything up. And then we flew from Kuwait directly into Iraq.
Right, to a base there to...
Yeah, so by the time we flew into Iraq, 3rd ID had already secured with the 82nd and the Marines, had secured
82nd
Baghdad.
Airborne,
yeah.
And the what Marines?
One of the Marine units.
Okay.
I don't know which one it was, but...
I think our listeners are interested in what these mean, 82nd or...
Oh, yeah.
The legendary 82nd Airborne.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then did you see fighting right away, or did you just land and get briefed or settle in? Or?
Yeah, so we just flew up to Baghdad, landed, and then we co-located with the 3rd Infantry Division. And we got, our briefing from them. And then the next couple days, we started going out on missions, on flying, missions.
Armed missions.
Yeah,
okay.
Armed missions to provide reconnaissance and security.
Right.
To the people and to the soldiers on the ground, right?
Now that would be the first missions they would put you on. They wouldn't want you to actually engage the enemy right away. They want you to get used to the terrain and the environment, or
of course, in a low intensity conflict, finding the enemy is a little bit more difficult than you would think because they're living amongst the civilian population.
Right.
So you can't really just go find the enemy and shoot them
like the movies.
Yeah, it's definitely it's it's a low intensity conflict. So terrorist activities, roadside bombs, stuff like that. So finding them was very challenging. So
usually there was a ground contact radio to you from the infantry unit fighting them, and they would tell you where they were, and you were still wondering where they were, right?
Yeah. So that's how we would flush out the enemy. Basically, would be once the enemy launched an ambush attack on American forces or allies, we would respond to that attack, and we would show up hopefully quickly. And then deal with the enemy, engage and destroy.
Well, now the listener may not know, but a lot of military folks in Taiwan do operate the Apache. But what does the Apache carry in terms of armaments? What we call weapons?
Yeah, so you carry, of course, the 30 millimeter chain gun.
Okay.
So it shoots out about 10 rounds per second. And
Lord.
yeah, so so the rounds are they call it dual purpose, so high explosive dual purpose.
Okay.
So they have penetration capability, but they also fragment like a grenade.
Lord. Okay.
Yeah, so each bullet, is like a small grenade. So a lot of devastating power with the chain gun for sure.
Right. So when they hit a car, it just turns it into cheese.
Yeah, definitely. Any kind of civilian structure like that would definitely. Yeah.
Concrete building, of course, with the brick would just melt, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we had the chain gun. Of course, everybody has heard of the Hellfire missile.
Right. That's anti-armor.
Yes, originally
Anti-tank.
designed for anti-tank,
Right.
anti-armor. And it's the good thing about the Hellfire is it's laser guided, so it's high accuracy. So can be shot from really close or really far away, and it's going to go right to where the laser is pointing.
And the pointing, where is it pointing? By your guy, your mask, or you wear some sort of?
No, so the Apache
or?
helicopter has they call it the target acquisition designating system in the front seat. So it's like think of it as a camera targeting system that can zoom in really far and then also shoot the laser. So
locks it on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
But you also had a mask that, or I don't know what it's called. It's an eyesight that guides the turret. Is that correct for the 30?
Yeah, they call it IHADS. It's an integrated helmet sight display system. It basically links the gun system to your head, so wherever you look, the gun can move to wherever you're looking. Also, the night sensors. Flight sensors, so you can see at night. Wherever you look, you can see thermal imaging at night.
So you can see the enemy at night running around and taking cover behind a bush, and you
for sure.
Yeah, they don't have much of a chance. I've seen these videos, of course, on YouTube. I was told that some of those were yours.
Yeah. Of course, these gun tape videos are considered classified or controlled by the U.S. military, but I see, obviously if you have an engagement, you'll remember it for the rest of your life. So it's very hard to forget. So sometimes you'll see your engagement show up on the internet from, the Army does classify them, but they
give them the media or maybe
they have databases and people whatever, I don't know, somewhere along the line someone downloaded your database, right?
Put music to it and rock and roll music.
In fact, it's interesting. Have you watched the movie 13 Hours?
Yes.
So the beginning
Benghazi.
Of,
horrible Libya.
At the beginning of the movie, they were trying to set the the tone for the movie about the British military exercises in Libya and their use of the Apache helicopter and stuff there. But in the movie, one of the Apache helicopter engagement scenes was my actual gun tape video from Iraq.
Oh, I see.
That they used in the movie. So
Should
it was
have called them right away and said, "Hey, I want my piece of it. I want my money."
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so that was. I turned the movie on and I was watching. I was like, "Hey, that looks familiar." And I was like, "Wow, that's." Oh,
you get PTSD or something.
Yeah.
Well, is that true? Is PTSD real? Because I'm sure my listeners are wondering.
I mean,
post-traumatic stress disorder, right?
Yeah. So obviously, PTSD is not solely for military members, right?
Sure.
So I mean, anybody can have PTSD. Any if you whether you're a child that was abused or whatnot by your parents, if you
Car
had some type
accidents.
of traumatic experience in your life,
Sure.
Yeah, of course. I think everybody has some percentage of traumatic events in their life that they have to deal with. So the PTSD diagnosis is actually diagnosed for lots of different reasons.
Do you think it's overdone in the movies here today? That everyone seems to get the diagnosis, that it seems that there's an inflation to the idea that you have PTSD?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know the because you have PTSD or whatnot. Does I don't know. It doesn't.
You see college kids on YouTube saying they have PTSD, and I go, well, what's going on? You never did anything yet. You haven't.
Right.
It hasn't arrived.
Yeah. I can tell you this. My grandfather, he was a B-17 door gunner or a side gunner. They call it waist gunner for the B-17 in World War II.
Which side, here or there?
In Europe.
Okay, I want to make sure it wasn't over Taiwan.
Oh, yeah. Because there was some limited bombing here.
There was some bombing here, yeah.
Right. No, he was out of the UK and North Africa. So growing up, my grandfather had a lot to deal with the traumatic events from World War II.
Sure.
And
how many trips did you have to make before you could go home?
Well, that was interesting. At first, it was 25.
Right.
But then Doolittle took over command over there, and then he started increasing it to 30. So,
oh no.
Let's say you're at your 24th mission, and then the military changed it. Oh, now you got to be at 30, and then so it didn't make a lot of friends with the crews. But by the end of the war, it was up to 35.
Oh my God!
Yeah, so my grandfather did 35 missions.
Did he ever have to jump or?
No. He was able to stay with the aircraft.
All right.
He was hit. The aircraft was hit. By 88 millimeter cannons and stuff, air defense, but the aircraft was able to fly back, damaged as it was.
Those things were amazing aircraft back in the day. Very simple, basically a tin can with wings.
Yeah, he has a picture of himself standing on a ladder in the wing, in the hole. That the round, it didn't detonate. The 88, the round went through the wing.
Right.
Did not explode, and because they're set on timers. But anyways, he got the Distinguished Flying Cross for that mission. And,
all right.
So he came back. He had some definitely some problems adjusting, temperament and stuff like that. But and.
A lot of people got in drinking at the VFW or American Legion Club.
Yeah.
These are veterans clubs that were very popular after the war.
Yeah.
They were full of guys that were just torn up emotionally.
Right. So I always thought to myself, I didn't understand, you are who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you see bad things happen, it shouldn't change who you are.
Right.
But
it does. Yeah.
So in retrospect, in hindsight, looking back, I did 3 deployments, 2 15-month deployments to Iraq, and then 1 year to Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And as an Apache helicopter pilot, and all of them were, a lot of shooting, a lot of enemy action, and
air to ground, or sorry, ground to air. Anybody shooting back at you?
Yeah, many times. Yeah.
All right, but was it an air defense missile or a rocket or something, or was it just machine gun fire? Or
it varied definitely. Of course, the majority of it was machine gun fire.
Right.
I think a gun system. I went up head to head with this guy. I was 500 meters away from him. He pulled the tarp off of an air defense 14.5 millimeter gun system. One of them guns that you have to sit in the chair and run the wheels around.
Right.
So I was flying around, and he pulled the cover off it, and he jumped in the chair, and I was only 500 meters away from him, and then he starts shooting as he's trying to wheel the thing around to
get a better shot at you.
To hit me. And it was just like the Old West. I selected my gun system. I looked at him. I pulled the trigger.
Standing on the street.
Whoever's the quickest wins.
Fast draw.
Yeah, so 14.5 millimeter gun system. RPGs were everywhere. So,
you got pretty low to the ground sometimes, didn't you?
Oh yeah. Anywhere. So our flight envelope was huge, depending on the tactical situation, could be, 5 feet off the ground.
My God.
To, 10,000 feet.
RPGs are rocket-propelled grenades, let the listener know, and they're very common in the third world insurgencies. You'll see them. Yeah. They're cheap, they're easy to get, and the guy in the chair rotating around trying to get you, and you must have had a little bit of respect for him.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, you must have thought, this guy's got some guts. He's taking on me. What if he wins?
Yeah. You don't have a lot of time to think about it, but
sure. Say, gee, I respect that guy. He's trying to kill me.
No.
Face to face. That's a very rare quality. But what were you thinking in terms of? You must have thought, well, what if I get shot down in enemy territory? I don't really. What did you carry on you for personal protection?
Of course. Every aviator, we carried our standard loadout for ammunition. So we had an M4 rifle.
Oh, you got it in there.
Yeah,
okay.
So I carry an M4 and a 9mm, Beretta 9mm.
Okay, I love that weapon particularly. Yeah. It's a nice handgun.
Yeah, so we carry, our escape and evasion bag, radio, survival radio, and all that stuff. So in the event, actually, helicopters getting shot down are not usually a good ending.
Right.
So
the crash will probably take care of it, I guess.
So the likelihood of surviving a helicopter crash, it goes,
particularly in the city,
down. Yeah. So it's not like you can eject or anything.
No. And so you had your M4 assault, right? And you did you know anybody that got shot down and survived, or?
So I had numerous friends of mine shot down over Iraq and did not survive.
Oh, did not. I'm sorry.
So you can look at some websites. It's an interesting one. There's ArmyAirCrews.com.
Okay.
It's a good historical view on. You can see how many aircraft were shot down or crashed, or what the cause was. It'll give you the location and the reason the helicopter went down and stuff. So we lost over 40-50 helicopters, enemy fire, a pretty substantial amount.
In both wars, or just Iraq?
It was just Iraq.
Okay. Yeah. All right. The your interaction with locals. You mostly stayed on a base. You never really interacted with probably local civilians, did you? Or
Well, the first year I was there, we had a lot of interaction with the locals because, like, the insurgency hadn't started.
right,
The mindset was Saddam was gone.
right,
We're going to rebuild the country, and we didn't know there was going to be an insurgency.
right. I know this.
Yeah,
There were some kidnappings of people, right?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I remember the guy got kidnapped off a bus, didn't he? And he ended up,
Yeah.
yeah, they videotaped that, killing him. That scared the hell out of a lot of folks. It wasn't like Vietnam where you went into town,
No,
and
no.
hit the bars
No.
and married locals. Did you ever? No one married locals there.
Actually, there was one guy that made the news for marrying a local.
Really?
It was an Army National Guard soldier, I think, out of Florida, and it was infantry job. They were doing dismounted patrols in Baghdad, and he got married on patrol
What?
to an Iraqi woman, and brought her back to America.
Really?
Yeah.
Probably her whole family as well.
I don't know. I think I read that they're divorced now, but
Oh no.
yeah, very very crazy story. But
Well, that was very normal back in the day. In Vietnam, at least, there was a
Yeah.
lot of Korea as well, and
yeah,
the guys would always marry local girls and bring them back, and some of those marriages were great. Others didn't work out, obviously. So okay, wow, we were talking about the stresses of war psychologically. I think you mentioned once that you had to, after each mission, you had to be debriefed by a psychologist or something to that nature, or somebody would ask you certain questions to see if you were not over, hadn't gone over the.
yeah. So it's interesting. So yes and no. We would have to meet with a psychologist at the end of the deployment. So
the deployment. That's different.
So at the end of the year or year and a half, we would meet with a psychologist to get the green check mark where you're okay to continue to serve. Yeah.
And you passed.
Yeah. Like,
So you did 3 deployments in Iraq.
Yeah. It's interesting. They ask you first questions have you ever thought about hurting yourself or anyone else? And you say, that is my job. Like my job is literally to hurt other people. But personally, no. But that is my job to do that.
Oh, that's a hard question. It's kind of like what we call a trick question.
Yeah.
In America, that's a trick question. How do you answer that question? But I know that you had mentioned there had been some suicides on base. A few people decided for whatever reason they couldn't handle. They weren't in combat, right? They were technicians, or
yeah.
A lot of them weren't combat at all.
That is true. Yeah. The overwhelmingly large number of U.S. military forces are not direct combat soldiers, right? So most of them are support, logistics, stuff jobs. So the majority of service members over there were actually not in direct combat, but they still have the same stresses, being away from their families and stuff.
All right, and maybe their wives are divorcing them while they're in deployment.
Yeah.
Who knows? It happens a lot, actually.
But in Iraq and Afghanistan, our bases, even though they're not it's not a combat job, we would get indirect mortars and rockets every night. They would hit our base, and it's just, indiscriminate killing. You'd just be walking around, going to the shower, and get hit. So
105 or something, or
90
or
yeah,
mortar around.
Yeah,
and they weren't able to clean that up on around the base.
No,
it's just no way, huh?
It's just part of the gig.
God, unbelievable.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends, when I was a young man, I wasn't old enough to serve in Vietnam, but So, but I had a lot of older relatives and older neighbor kids that went to Vietnam. A lot of stories they told coming back were deaths by accident. That people were killed even on patrol by accidents. It had nothing to do with the enemy.
Yeah, I think the U.S. military is a little bit more
professional now.
I don't know if you say professional, but they're more concerned about accidents, right? So
Right.
there's definitely a lot more risk planning going into daily activities to include missions, to
Right.
include anything and everything. So, safety first is the motto, right? So,
Right.
as you know, back in the 1960s was not the national, was not the average, was mission first, right? So I think the
Right.
mentality has changed a little bit about safety.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that, for example, my uncle who served in the Mekong Delta area was with the infantry, and he would just pack grenades in all his free pockets and hang them off his belt, and then he saw what happened when a stray bullet hit one of them. A friend of his just disappeared right there. So he stopped carrying grenades at all. Maybe one or two, but that was it. So yeah, there was silly things, that he would tell me that accidents would happen that were clearly people who had watched too many movies, maybe John Wayne, or I'm sure the listener doesn't know who John Wayne is. But okay, so you're in Iraq, and and during the Vietnam War, if someone did 2 deployments, that was a big deal. He was a man's man or crazy or something. But some of you folks, you did 3 there in Iraq. You did another one in Afghanistan. That would be a pretty stressful. I don't know. Did you ever see any? How did you unwind after a mission? Did you watch TV with the boys? Did you exercise? Did you? I don't know. How do you re-engage the real world on base? You're still on base.
Yeah.
How do you keep? Do you watch TV news in America? Are you able to catch up on what's going on? Are you isolated?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on base.
Yeah, I think obviously sleep is most important to me. But watch it. You could go down to the little sales bazaar and buy those copied DVDs, movies.
Right, back then they had that.
Yeah. So whatever. I would just watch movies and stuff like that to decompress. But getting your proper rest was very important for the next day. So
right.
You flew on a mission every day. So
for how long before didn't you get a 3-day break?
So every month you'd have 2 days off.
No way.
Yeah. So
how do you keep your stress levels?
You
gotta be getting dizzy after a while.
Yeah.
That can't be good for safety.
Yeah. I think the most flight hours I flew for aviators, or in a short period. So 2 months in Afghanistan, I flew 180 hours.
Wow.
In 2 months.
My God, that's a lot.
Wow. Yeah.
So, were you cautious about making new friends when they got there? A lot of guys, after they see friends die, they don't want to make friends with the new guys that come on.
Yeah, our rotations were a little bit different than Vietnam. Like Vietnam, the units would stay in Vietnam, and then new people would rotate in and out.
Right.
But the U.S. military, it does it a little bit different now. So now the whole unit deploys in together and they leave together.
Right.
We didn't have a lot of new people showing up.
Okay.
So if you lose people, then you're out. You might have 1 or 2 people showing up, but you still have to do the job with what you have left.
So you keep track of your old buddies?
I try to, yeah.
Facebook or
yeah.
A lot of them married, kids now, or still in the military, or
yeah, most of them are all out, retired, or doing other jobs and stuff like that now. But
okay.
Yeah.
Is anybody still flying helicopters? in the civilian market.
Yeah. I would say a large number of them are flying, medical transport
Really?
services in the U.S.
Outstanding.
And then also a lot of them have chosen to go commercial aviation to fly
Right.
for, Delta, Southwest Airlines of America, and United.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was always curious as to whether you could make that jump from rotary to fixed wing, but
Yeah.
apparently you can. So, all right, at what point did you realize that you had to go to Afghanistan?
Yeah. So it was, I had returned from Iraq, and then 6 months after being back from Iraq, I was in Iraq for 15 months, and then I was back for 6 months, and then they said, hey, in 6 more months, you're going to Afghanistan.
Oh, my
So-
God. So they told you 6 months before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
we had time to
It's time to
plan and get our stuff together.
Now in Vietnam, if they told you they're gonna send you somewhere, you might shoot your toe off or
Yeah. Definitely. I looked at it as my job, and that's what I signed up to do.
You were a warrant
so-
officer. You were
Yeah.
not conscripted. You're not drafted.
Right. The American military is all volunteer organization, so
Right.
everybody volunteered to be there. So
Professional.
Yeah.
Do you think it should go back to a conscription at some point, just to give everybody a taste of reality?
I think would the cost benefit for that would not be good for the United States.
Really? Okay.
I think the amount of service members that we have available to pull from,
Mhm.
right? So I retired from the military, 25 years. As a retired officer, I am subject to recall up until the age of 60.
All right. Well, that would be a third world war, probably.
Right. Yeah. Which is the reason that you would need a conscript army to begin with.
Right.
So we have a lot of former service members that are out in the civilian world now that would, in the event that there is a world war, we'd be recalled.
Okay. All right. Well, look, we're going to have to wrap that up. I'm so sorry, Brian. Wow, what a wonderful conversation. And I hope we can have you back soon, okay?
All right. Thank you for having me.
This is Fantastic Formosa signing off. Bye-bye, folks.